I'm going to talk about the Nordic model as the best approach to tackling prostitution. I'm Megan King. I'm a survivor and an abolitionist. I speak as a survivor of the trade myself, initially being coerced into the trade. I then continued to sell sex off-street independently, glamorising my situation as being a high-class escort for a period of 8 months in my early 20s across the south of England. I'm also going to draw upon research that I've undertaken to the topic of the Nordic model, allowing a more holistic understanding of what the Nordic model approach is and why it is the best and only way to tackle prostitution. So a lot of this will be drawing upon my research from my master's. The Nordic model was originally implemented by Sweden in 1999 and is also referred to as the sex bylaw. The approach focuses on these three aims: to decriminalise all those who are prostituted, to provide services to help them leave, that prostitution buying becomes a criminal offence. The key aim is that if we tackle the demand, the supply reduces. Let's look at these three key aims of the Nordic model approach more closely. Firstly, why should we decriminalise those who are prostituted? Well, a quote from a staff member of an exit support charity in my master's research says, "Women who sell sex do it because of vulnerabilities, and criminalising vulnerabilities seems absolute madness to me." Women who sell sex do so for many reasons. I'd describe it as a coercion continuum. On one end of the scale, you have women who have been explicitly trafficked, where the force of their situation is very visible. And on the other side, you have women for whom prostitution appears from the outset to be more of a choice. However, I believe that for the majority of women in prostitution, if not all, there is some level of coercion based on inequalities, vulnerabilities, and the societal acceptance of the male gaze. And when it is referred to as a choice, it is a choice out of choiceless options. Furthermore, the most common reasons why women sell sex are listed here. The most common reason cited is previous sexual abuse. Unresolved trauma from historic sexual abuse will lead to a breakdown of a woman's self-esteem. It will lead to distorted views of sex and men and an ability to learn how to distance one's body. The latter is a key requirement for surviving in prostitution, as women are forced to use these harmful strategies to detach and disengage from the trauma that they're suffering. For me, as someone who had been sexually abused in adolescence, sex really had no meaning to me, and therefore I had learned how to temporarily detach my mind from my body. Therefore, playing the role of the happy hooker to a punter seemed as though it would be easy, although actually you realise that you're just re-traumatising over and over and over. Many women have turned to prostitution to feed their families, whilst waiting for their first universal credit payment under the 6-week wait. By criminalising women in prostitution, you are punishing an individual who has already suffered and continues to do so. You are criminalising something most women do not even want to be doing in the first place, but they feel there is no choice. Poverty and deprivation, also cited as one of the root causes of prostitution, is then clearly based on her disadvantage. The punishment of prostitution is often a monetary fine, which is also ironic and counterproductive. The second key aim of the Nordic model approach is to provide more services to help women leave the sex trade. As much as entry into prostitution is complex and multifaceted, so too is exiting the sex trade. Therefore, if buying sex became a criminal offence in the UK, as the demand for sex is addressed, it is expected then that the women selling sex may require additional support and assistance in finding alternative work, exiting the trade and moving on from a life in prostitution. As this quote shows, there are currently very, very few exit support services within the UK. So the Nordic model approach recognises the need for such organisations and believes that this is a key aim of the approach. The third key aim is that buying sex becomes a criminal offence. Firstly, I love this quote from my academic research: "Happy, healthy people don't buy sex." I can advocate the truth in this. Men who buy sex usually do so to exercise power or control when they are feeling powerless. However, they are still the perpetrators. If men didn't buy sex, women wouldn't have to sell it. We can look to the countries that have already implemented a sex buyer law to testify that when demand is reduced, so too is supply. In Sweden from 1999 to 2008, there was a 76% reduction in the number of prostituted women. When buyers risk criminalisation, this has a deterrent effect because they're going to risk losing their anonymity, and therefore their partners, employers, and the wider community may become aware that they are buying sex, which would cause collateral consequences for them. When women are not reduced to serving the sexual appetites of men, male domination is also weakened. So through the implementation of the Nordic model, countries like Sweden are paving the way for enhanced gender equality for women. Also, another reason why buying sex needs to become a criminal offence is because punters do not just buy you for sex. It is not just sex. Here is a quote that was sent to me by a punter. "I'm sure you'd love to be tied, helpless, and used by groups of men. I'm not going to arrange that for you, as I seem to be doing all the running at the moment." The sex trade is inherently abusive. Punters pay to do what they like to you, to beat you, slap you, ejaculate on you, urinate on you. This email suggests that I would like to be gang raped. This is not an uncommon email. I also visited a punter who graphically described his love for child pornography, forced me to pretend to be a child, and examined my anus and was disappointed that my bowels were empty. They don't just buy sex, they buy your entire body to do whatever they want with, however sordid. I was threatened by clients when insisting on a condom. I was filmed without consent. I was made to suck a bare penis of an unwashed overweight farmer who had clearly been working all day and whom had not washed. There is no glamour in this. And this is also another example to prove that it is not just sex that a punter is buying. The same punter asked me to bring these following items to a booking. You can clearly see that abuse was his plan. I'm now going to look at the opposing argument, the argument that prostitution should be fully decriminalised. One of the leading arguments for the passing of this law in the Netherlands was that decriminalisation would create safety for women, as then indoor facilities would become registered and licensed. But the reality is that the Dutch government did not adequately control the licensed prostitution sector, and women working in indoor establishments are required to pay rent to undertake their business. Therefore, a third party is still profiting off the women's prostitution. To reflect upon a survivor's biography, Sarah Forsyth's book, Slave Girl, written in 2009, narrates her experience as a British girl trafficked to the red light district in Amsterdam. Within the book, she describes the reality of the sex trade there, including witnessing the murder of a fellow prostituted woman, as the brothel owners created a snuff porn video, which, for those of you who are unaware what this means, it is pornography depicting real homicide. Therefore, she witnessed someone be murdered in the name of pornography in front of her. The lived experiences of Sarah Forsyth validate the view that decriminalisation of prostitution in the Netherlands has not increased safety for women. And the fact that the prostitution sector is not licensed properly means that trafficking continues to prevail there. Equally, in Germany, there are now an estimated 400,000 women currently working in the sex trade because of its decriminalisation, and it is referred to as the brothel of Europe. Here, punters can also select in some brothels whether they want a real woman or a sex doll, proving that women have become reduced to mere replaceable objects. Also, if prostitution was fully decriminalised, pimps and traffickers can walk free. This quote from my research says, "Full decrim doesn't really work unless you are a trafficker and then you're in big business." In my personal situation, where I was initially coerced into the sex trade by a man taking 50% of all my earnings, in inverted commas, who also forced himself on me between clients, exploited my vulnerabilities, sexually assaulted me on a regular basis, and made over £400,000 from exploiting women into prostitution, I was able to report him to the police and he received criminal justice sanctions and prison time. But if prostitution was fully decriminalised, what he did to me would be perfectly legal. The impact of prostitution on the women is that they may experience post-traumatic stress symptoms, dissociative identity disorder, various other mental health conditions. They also experience a continued warped view of sex. For me, I still don't know how I will ever have happy, healthy, consensual sex that doesn't consist of me feeling like I have to perform. 2 years after leaving the sex trade, I was sent a video on a porn site that someone thought was me. I had to watch a video of this girl giving oral sex about 20 times before concluding that it wasn't me, because the industry had destroyed me so much that I didn't even recognize myself. This industry gives you lifelong consequences. You can read my story in full on the Nordic Model Now website, as well as many other survivor stories, and today you are also going to hear from other brave survivors. You can also follow the Nordic Model Now on the above social media accounts to be kept up to date with our fight for the Nordic model in the UK. Thank you.